Welcome, Evelyn.
Thank you very much for that lovely introduction. As you can see, I am not a professional as I sit here in my large refrigerator box. I wanted my gestures to stand out during this presentation, and this seemed to be the best I could put together. Just to let you know, I am a keen observer of people as they give their speeches and the body languages they use. So tonight I'm going to share with you why gestures are important, how you can use them to make your speeches more effective, what can go wrong if you use them incorrectly, and I'm going to list 4 different kinds of body gestures, and we'll all get a chance to practice them. If you have questions or comments, please go ahead and put them in the chat window. And I've asked Abhijit to monitor that window, and you can interrupt me at any time to ask those questions, Abhijit. Thank you very much. Also, there is a link, I believe, that is to a handout. If it's not there now, we'll add it later. And that's for future reference if you need. All right, so let's get into it. Why the heck are gestures so important? Well, because they are our non-verbal communication. I'm going to share with you a very simple little short story that is only with gestures. Let's say I'm walking down the street and I think I see someone I know. All right, so what you get from that is, hi, how are you? Oops, you're not who I thought you were. Sorry. All with gestures, no words. Very effective to use gestures to convey meaning, to emphasize a point, and unfortunately, sometimes they can distract from our message. Our gestures include eye contact, my hand and body movements, as well as facial expressions. And just know that your gestures always attract the audience's attention. And now that we're using Zoom and we're so close to our cameras, every little movement is greatly magnified. So when do we use gestures? The number one reason or way to use a gesture is to emphasize a point. You see how I did that? I wanted to emphasize a point. So I put my hand out, I leaned forward, my eyebrows raised up. You don't have to do all of that, but one of those, it helps draw the audience's attention to a particular phrase that you're using. Gestures also can be used in place of words. This is more advanced and it usually involves a bit of acting, but here's an example. The first time I stood up in front of my club to give my icebreaker, I looked out at the audience and saw all these eyes staring at me, and does that seem familiar? So what I did right there is, rather than say, oh, I was so scared and my heart was pounding and I couldn't catch my breath, I just conveyed it all with gestures. The last way that we use gestures is the way we don't want to use them. And that's when our bodies convey how we're feeling inside, when we really don't want the audience to know that. And that's usually nerves. What I'm going to do now is give you a little example. I want you to listen to what I'm saying and watch what I'm doing. The new application is quite robust, and I'm very confident that all of you will find it easy to use. All right, I'm going to go to gallery view here. And I want to see if all of you, thumbs up or thumbs down, did you believe what I was saying? Yeah, no. Stiff, no smile, hands clenched in front of me. That's right. Those are all giveaways that and it distracts from the message, which was I was supposed to be confident that this was going to be easy for everyone. Just to let you know, I am looking over to the top left because my notes are there, and we'll get to eye contact in just a moment. Going back to when we're nervous, we tend to self-soothe. The number one gesture everyone does, hands up, because this is protecting our vital organs. We might clasp our hands, do this. The other thing that can happen when we're sitting, I notice people rock forward and back. If you're standing to present, you probably rock from foot to foot, left and right. Something that women tend to do when they're self-soothing. Or people go like this. All of that is a distraction unless you're talking about hair. So we want to avoid those kinds of movements. Just to reassure you that even professionals, their voice is perfect and confident. They will move across the stage like nothing bothers them. But watch their hands. You will see even professionals tend to bring their hands up every so often. That's the little hint that they're feeling nervous inside, and it's just an automatic thing. We want to fight it if we can as Toastmasters, fight that fight. All right, here's one other thing to make you feel super nervous. It takes only 7 seconds for an audience to determine your attitude and how confident you are. So what do? Well, we fake it until we make it. That means you need to have little tricks to keep yourself looking confident, even if you don't feel it. I'd like all of you to go ahead and go to your gallery view if you're not already there in the Zoom window, and that will allow you to see your own face in the screen. If you don't want to do that and you just want to watch me, that's fine as well. All right, so we're going to do this exercise together. Now, if I begin a presentation and I'm hunched in my chair, I see this a lot lately in my club, that does not convey confidence. We want to sit up straight in our chairs, shoulders back. The more room you take up, the more power you convey. And very important, as the Toastmaster is introducing you, you should smile. A smile conveys warmth and confidence. You're connecting with the audience. And here's one little extra tip. If you want to look attractive, it's been determined people who smile and tilt their head a little are considered a little more attractive. So yeah, you're doing it. Yeah, hot. Love it. All right. Now, movement with our whole body. We want to try and remain still, not be rocking back and forth. So one way to do that is to remind yourself to keep your shoulder blades touching the back of your chair. Then, when you finally move, it has meaning. So if I want to emphasize a point, now I came forward. Here's another example from a speech. Assuming a stable fuel, oxygen, and heat, a house fire will double in size every minute. So just very simple, that body gesture, moving forward, helps emphasize something that's important as you're speaking. Moving forward is also excellent when you're going to share a punchline. Here's an example, one of my favorite jokes. Sometimes when I look in the mirror, I don't like what I see. But then I remember the loving words of my wise grandmother. She would say, Eveline, don't think of yourself as ugly. Think of yourself as a beautiful monkey. I just love that joke. Here's one other example. This one is doing the punchline, but going back. So I begin forward and I say, there are two types of people in the world. Those who crave closure and that's the joke. Yeah, not only does it drive people crazy, but it drives me crazy too, but it always gets me to laugh. You can use those anytime you like. All right. The first kind of gesture I'm going to talk about is eye contact. And that's because it's the toughest one to do on Zoom. Why? Because it's human nature to want to look at the faces on my screen and watch their reactions. But if I'm looking at all of you, I'm not looking at my camera, and it looks like I'm looking down. If I just stare at my camera for a whole 5 to 7 minute speech, I'm going to scare people. So that doesn't work either. Here's a workaround that I find works pretty well. Put your mouse on the top of your application window, your Zoom window. It's like a white bar. If you hold your mouse down on that and drag it up as high and as close to your camera as you can, then in the top right of your Zoom window, look for speaker view and click on that. Now what you'll have are at least 4 faces across the top, and then whoever's speaking in the center, you or whoever the last person was who talked. Now when I speak, I can look at those individual faces and also look at up at the camera every so often. And as I'm speaking, this kind of layout mimics being on stage, looking out at an audience member, coming back to the center, looking out at a different audience member. And by having the faces really close to my camera, it looks more natural instead of your eyes looking down. All right. There's one other way you can lose or not worry about eye contact, and that is if you get up and stand to give your speech rather than from a seated position. The farther back you are from your camera, the less people can see where your pupils are, so you can get away with a lot more. Plus the angle between you and the camera is greater, so you could look down at faces and it's still okay. Other than eye contact, we have hand gestures. That is the most often used are gestures. They give us away by clasping and being nervous in front of us. So we need to practice being aware of our hands. When you're practicing your speech at home, here's what I recommend. Hold cans of soup or something in each hand. Now, as you're talking, that added weight will make you quite conscious of your hands. So if you're bringing them up, as you're imagining talking to your audience, you'll know, that looks weird. No, I better keep my hands down. And then when you want to emphasize a point, you're more conscious of it. Too much hand movement, fast, and again, it's when we're sitting close to the camera, it's flickery and very annoying to the audience. Same with if I gesture big, yay, or go over here. Your hands are going out of the scene, annoying. Gestures that come too close to the camera, know what I mean? Whoa, it makes everyone flinch, also annoying. With Zoom, we have to keep our movements quite small and have your elbows in line with your shoulders. avoid swinging way out. So let's try that. I would like all of you to point to yourself and then now point to the side. And notice, oh, how far out can I go? So if you're in gallery view, just to let you know, let me go to gallery view. Here we go. There we go. And then try with point to yourself and then go the other way. And it's just incredibly tight area. And you'll notice it really does help. If your elbow is in line with your shoulder, then you're pretty safe. Your hand is staying within the window. Okay. Here's one other tip I've learned secondhand. There is a woman, her name is Shelley Golden, and she is a makeover expert for online performance. And what she says is, if you can fit 2 or 3 fingers above your head, you're at an optimal point away from your camera. I've seen people who are like way down here when they're presenting, and there's all this empty area. So try and either move back or come in closer so that you are at optimal position for your camera. All right, we've done that. We've done how we feel tight. Before we go into to specific hand gestures, are there any questions so far?
I think so far right now.
No questions so far. Thank you. That's great. All right. So hand gestures. There is a group called the Science of People. They study people's skills, and they analyzed many TED Talks, and they found that the TED Talks that were the most popular, those speakers had almost double the amount of hand movements than the least likable TED speakers. So gesturing is important, but too many can be distracting. Effective communicators gesture for a reason. So I've said it a few times, I'm going to do it again. The best way to use a gesture is to emphasize a point, because here we want to have mentors in our club. Why? Because a mentor can bring knowledge and skill to help that speaker improve. All with hand gestures, trying to emphasize particular words. It also adds structure to your speech if you're going to be listing or counting. For example, I have 3 points I'd like to list for you today. Or if you prefer to be more manly and macho, turn your hand with the palm towards you, back of the hand forward, and the first 3 fingers, I've got 3 points to share with you today. Yeah. All right. So speaking of palms, front and back, in the olden days, we used to have weapons. People would approach each other with weapons. So by showing an empty palm, you were showing that you were trustworthy, you had no weapons, you were safe. Today, if we have an open palm, that's trustworthy and honest. And if you have your hand up, that's asking for a favor. If we turn our hand down, that's more like a demand. It's still trustworthy, but it's demanding. Here's an example. I'll say the same sentence with the same tone, but I'll change the hand movement each time. Here's the example. I would like to encourage all of you to use hand gestures when you're speaking. Here's example 2. I would like to encourage all of you to use hand gestures when you're speaking. So it's more of a, like, I'm demanding, you better be using hand gestures. Whereas here, come on, you guys, it's great. You can do it. All right, good.
There's a question.
Yes.
What is advisable? deliver speech by standing or by sitting?
I think it's perfectly fine with Zoom to deliver your speech sitting, but be careful not to become very complacent and relaxed. I noticed everyone just, at least in my club, before they used to stand up straight in front of the audience when they were speaking at, when we had a stage, and now it's more hunched. So if you can maintain a confident posture, it's perfectly fine to speak in a seating position. Good question. Yeah.
There's one more question.
Yes.
If there is sadness in the point that we are gonna talk, how to show that?
Good. I'm going to get to that in just a moment. So hang on to that question. That's
one more
good.
question.
Yes. Yes.
Miss Paul, you can ask it directly.
Okay, thanks. Hi, my name is Ivanka Paul and I'm visiting from the Bahamas. So, hey,
Hi.
my question has to do with your speaking area. Looking at you now, it appears as if you have closed in the environment around you. So would you recommend that as opposed to having such an open platform so persons can say, well, I wished you had used your speaking area more, but by confining your area, it limits your movement? Is that something that you would recommend?
Well, because I'm in a chair, it's fine. I don't know. I saw Ashley online or in the room at one point. He has a screen behind him. I'm using a cardboard box, which is really lame, but it's the best I had. Normally, just being in a room is great. You want to avoid too much clutter behind you, which is the problem I had. My office has a bookcase. The dog tends to come in, and so by trapping myself in a little area, but you're right. This personally, I think it looks too constrictive. So a background, if you had a screen or something that was back farther, it doesn't look like it's overwhelming you, that would probably be best.
So
No,
you
ma'am.
recommend virtual backgrounds when giving speeches, or don't use virtual backgrounds when giving speeches?
If you're a very still person, a background behind you, it works very well. But like me, I gesture a lot. And what happens is against the background, fingers disappear, then they reappear. As you move, your hair disappears and it reappears. It's all very distracting. I would recommend if you're a gesturer, you move a lot more, don't use a background, the fancy backgrounds.
Hello, madam. I have one question. I'm Martesh from India. I'm working as an assistant professor. I want to know about the leg movement, madam. When we talk in the dais, how you want to move leg movements, madam? For how to move leg movements?
As you're speaking?
Yeah.
Right. So as much as you can, limit your movements to just when you want to either draw attention to a particular point, just like that, or if you're trying to convey an emotion, how you felt about something. Otherwise, what can start to happen is we feel like we're miming our speech. Do you know what I mean? And it's almost too much movement and it starts to lose its impact.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Can I ask you one more question, ma'am?
Sure.
Actually, I don't like my natural, complete smile. But naturally, that smile comes when I enjoy hearing someone speaking humor. But I don't see it myself in the recorded videos or in the screens. So how I should handle that? Do I need to put only artificial smile, not completely smile, or can I hear from you about that?
Yeah, that's a good point. You want to have some kind of smile. You doesn't have to be a big grin like I tend to do. It could be a serene smile. But if you just begin your speech like this, it just makes you kind of look scared. So a smile at least conveys a bit of confidence, even a small smile.
One more question. Yeah.
Yeah.
What gestures are effective in getting the audience to join in or repeat a phrase?
I would just lean in if you want them to do something. Repeat after me, or remember the hand up. Please, if you could repeat this phrase, or let's all say rah, you know, something like that. But again, I'm leaning in. If you want audience participation, definitely lean in. You're trying to connect with them and look directly into your camera at that point. All right, the one other gesture I want to talk about is the hand over the heart. Someone talked about the sadness. The first thing with hand over the heart, this means I promise you, or I really mean it. You're being sincere. It's also when you want to express a strong emotion. When I saw the funeral procession go by, I was so touched at the care they had put on the coffin. I don't know why I'm going in that direction, but I was trying to think of something sad. The other thing you can say is the kindness that Sally showed me that day really impacted my life. So a strong emotion, hand over your heart, or I promise you, if you follow these steps, you will see success. All right, for these next hand gestures, I'd like to encourage you all to do them. So I have gone into gallery view so I can see many of you. And if you want to play along, you can go into gallery view too and watch yourself or watch the others, that's fine. And let's see what our first exercise is. All right, this one is very popular right now in America. We are getting lots of opportunity to listen to politicians. And when a politician points and emphasizes with their hand, how do they point? I better get my glasses on. Yes, Derek, very good. So close, you don't want to go like this when you're pointing. That's very aggressive. Instead, bend your knuckle and point with your knuckle. I've seen President Barack Obama, he would touch the two fingers together and point like that. So again, it's avoiding a single digit like you're poking. You don't want to poke people. For myself, if I want to point to people, I do the karate chop. I'd like each of you to do such and such. All right, how might you gesture if you were comparing two objects, this or that? This or that, very good. Good, I see you correcting so that doesn't go outside the monitor, good. Okay, let's hold it this time. I want you to, we're going to be comparing chocolate and vanilla. Now, how do you convey which one you prefer? Yes, higher, right? More emphasis. This one has more importance, so it goes up higher. Unless, of course, you were talking about which weight is heavier, then of course, the heavier one would drop down below. But if it's a positive thing, it tends to go up higher. This gesture is super important when you're trying to convey comparison to an audience, that visual connection, this or that. How about here or there? Yes, or behind, right, good. I saw Margaret go behind her. So it could be here, behind you, here, or forward, or here, or to the side. Very good, very good. And of course, near or far. How near are you to the snacks in your home? Very close and far away. Very good, very good. All right. Small, medium, and large, another comparison thing. So let's say you told your Friends, you were going to go fishing and catch. What size fish did you tell them you were going to catch? Yeah, big, right? But what did you actually catch? Teeny tiny. So there's lots of different ways I'm seeing. Good. I see with little finger this way, or this with both hands. This up and down also will work for bigger and smaller. Very good. Very good. This also is a comparison, especially for doing business presentations. We have a basic package, which is good for companies that aren't ready for a huge transformation, but our top seller is the favorite. Okay. How do you gesture to your audience if you want them to remember something? Remember this. Very good. I saw Cyril, he did this. It's called the brain tap. So remember, the next time you, ooh, I pointed, the next time you go do such and such, good. Or it can be, think about that for a moment. How would you gesture if you wanted to emphasize strength and encouragement? Like, yes, we can do this. Yeah, the closed fist and the pump. And I'm noticing, very good, everyone's keeping their emotions tight. Normally when we were on stage, it was, yes, go, your hand would go way up with strength. Well, now with Zoom, it's like, yay! So, but we still, by having a clenched fist, at least we're showing power, even if it's a small, little, tiny movement. Good, very good. All right, so some things to keep in mind when you're doing hand gestures. Realize that gestures in front of the body disappear. They don't stand out. So if you're saying, I have 3 points I want to share with you, my fingers are now competing with my face, my neck, my shirt. Hold your hand away from your body. I have 3 points I want to share with you. All right, a second way that you can use a hand gesture, this one's a little more advanced, is to connect a hand gesture with a placement of a character. Here's an example. My grandmother is a little tiny lady, sweet, gray-haired, but so wise. All right, now I go on with my speech, blah, 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 blah. And then when I refer back to my grandmother, I can just say, and grandma, because in the audience's mind, she's over there, they're picturing gray-haired, small lady, wise, and all I had to do is just put out my hand. That connection is in the audience's mind. And the last one is the one we want to be careful about. When we're gesturing, we're creating a scene in the audience's mind. Be careful not to break that scene. Here's an example. I woke up to the smell of smoke. I rushed to my window and, oh my gosh, I saw my neighbor's house on fire. I ran down the stairs. I'm in my pajamas. Flames are shooting out of her house, and there is my neighbor in her second-story window, holding out her baby, and she's screaming, catch her, catch her. What could I do? I was the only one around. I stood below the window and I put my hands up, and my neighbor dropped her baby. I didn't know if I could catch her. But then I remembered my grandmother's words of wisdom. Focus. So I've just created this whole scene in the audience's mind, and now I'm going to talk about my grandma. What about the baby falling? So careful that you don't break the scene after you've created it. All right, the last kind of gesture I'm going to discuss is facial expressions. We use facial expressions to convey emotion. Your facial expressions are as important as the speech content itself. It's the thing that will make what you're saying believable. If you were to speak in a monotone, That's the same as a face that doesn't change expression. So even if your voice is going, there was a woman in one of my storytelling clubs that I don't think she was able to emote. She was very funny, but she never changed her face feature at all. And it was very confusing to me. Her words were funny and all, but never expressing an emotion is confusing. So let it come through. All right, we're going to have a little fun now and practice our facial expressions. If you'd
That's
like,
a couple of questions.
I'm sorry, sure, go ahead.
Miss Paul, do you want to ask it?
Okay, yeah, sure. My question is, how do you communicate with someone who gives contradicting gestures? What I mean by that is they would shake their head to say no, but yes, they're actually saying verbally yes. How would you address that so that they can work on that?
That's a tough one. If it's a cultural thing, then that's tough. You might just want to say where we come from, you know, nodding yes, or this means yes and that means no. It would just have to be practice. If they're doing something confusing, there's probably a reason for why they're saying no. Now, if they're lying, their body language is giving them away. If they're saying, sure, yeah, I agree with you, then I would say, no, you don't. You do not. So that's one thing when we convey you can let them know that it's undermining their message if you're trying to coach them. Otherwise, it could just be a cultural difference.
Okay, so to put some context in it, I would have witnessed someone giving a presentation and you could see the doubt in what they were saying. So the first thing they did was they gave a negative with the shaking of the head, but then they tried to give an affirmative in their response. And that's what I was asking. How do you have someone address a matter like that? So
Yeah.
practice. Okay,
Practice.
I'll tell them practice. Like, thank you.
It really does come down to practice. And not only that, probably what happened in that speaker's case is they're very nervous and they don't have any confidence at all. I had a friend who was brand new and she was giving a speech about what you do in an emergency. And she said, and these points that I've given you are very important to help you in an emergency. And then she was so frustrated with her performance, she just blew off the ending line. And that was the main point. So it's their bodies conveying their distress or their lack of confidence.
I have one question.
Yes.
How about mirroring? Should we avoid mirroring of hands or gestures? Yeah,
that's a good point. And that's when the cans really come in handy, because there's that added weight. If you're talking and they're both moving at the same time, and again, this is practice, right? A lot of people tend to show up at the Toastmaster meeting and just speak off the top of their head. If you don't practice at all, it's hard to come up with the perfect words and the right gestures and body movement. That practicing beforehand at home is what allows you to get everything under control. I certainly do not have the mental capacity to do it all at once, just off the top of my head. So yeah, as Abhijit mentioned, avoid constantly doing this. In fact, I may have been doing that. And that comes from, if we want to emphasize a point, we're consciously saying, now I'm going to throw out my hand. And here's the point I'm making. Whereas if I'm just talking to you and I'm just saying, and this is an important point too, I'm not thinking about my hands. That's when people tend to do parallel gestures. They're just throwing their hands around. They're not thinking about them. Okay. All right. Let's say you walked into the house and your mother has just baked some fresh cookies. Yeah, so we're showing that with our face. Yeah, I see someone rub their hands together. Yeah, cookies, cookies. That's right. So the nose goes up to indicate you're picking up a scent. It's a good scent. Very good. For this next one, you can use your hands. Let's say you're giving a speech about dealing with a broken air conditioner and the temperature was over 100 degrees. Show us how you felt at that time. Right, almost everybody wiped their head. Notice another thing that you all are doing as well. When we are exhausted, we're overwhelmed with an emotion or a temperature, we slow our gestures down. So we didn't go, wow, I'm hot. No, we said, oh, hot. So when you're exhausted, you slow things down. That conveys it really well. Same thing. Let's say you're out hiking. You're telling a speech about going to Yosemite and you were backpacking. How would you indicate that your backpack is heavy and the trail is long? Yeah, good. Yeah, good. You're showing weight. Right. That kind of thing helps your stories, your speeches come to life. When people say, I went to Yosemite and I backpacked the whole trail. My pack was about 100 pounds. It was really heavy and the trail felt really long and it was hot, but I enjoyed it overall. Well, did any of that really happen? You didn't even convey anything with your body. So let us see it. The backpack was heavy. The trail was long. Go ahead, have fun with it. Show us how it feels to you.
I have two questions.
Yes.
How do you practice gestures?
In front of a mirror. That's a good question. In front of a mirror is one way. The first thing I would recommend is write your speech and practice your speech so that you don't have to think about the words. Then record yourself either with your phone or you can use a free version of Zoom and record yourself and then play it back and watch. Are you emoting at the right time? Maybe you can say, oh, I need to show that a little more. Maybe I could smile more at that point. Watching yourself in a recording is very helpful.
Another question.
Yes.
Do you recommend a practice buddy for gestures?
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime you can have someone to help you out, heck, it can be a family member. Just tell them up front, okay, I'm going to give you my speech and just tell me, do I move in a way that's confusing to you at any point? Or is there something more I could have shown to make it seem real what I was talking about? But yeah, a buddy is great, or a friend, family member, as long as they're kind. And yes.
Another question, is it recommended to hold a water bottle or a tiny thing to control hand gestures?
Are you, what is it? Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yes. Is it recommended to hold a water bottle or a tiny thing to control the hand gestures?
Ah, I see. Definitely not a water bottle. Way too obvious if you're talking about during a performance. I have seen politicians hold a pen, so that you can get away with that probably. Something small. It will be noticeable if your hand comes up and your speech has nothing to do with writing or a pen. They might wonder, why are they holding a pen? But if it gives you that little bit more confidence to do it at the beginning, go for it. Anything to help yourself.
Another question.
Yes.
How much is too much being dramatical?
Ah, yeah. If you were to say, I guess it would depend. That's a very tough one. I should probably ask Dennis. He's got a lot of acting background. To say things that are, if your gestures are overly grand, I would say it's too much. So if you say, the other day I was so happy to complete my dinner on time. You know, that you're talking about something so simple. Why are your gestures so big? If you're not aware of that, that's when you need a friend to tell you, too much, too much.
Another question, what about if someone has his legs shaking?
Ooh, well, hey, now that we're using Zoom, if you're seated, you don't have to worry about your legs. But if you're standing, here's a key for when you're really nervous. Avoid just sitting, waiting for your turn to be introduced and then go. That's way too nerve-wracking. Instead, turn off your video, stand up, jump up and down, burn off some of that nervous energy. I mean, I'll do that before my speeches. I move around, I bend down, I stretch, I'm opening my mouth up and down, I'm stretching my arms, opening my hands, closing my hands, anything to get the blood circulating. Then I turn on my video and I'm very calm and smiling at the camera. They don't know that I was a complete maniac just a moment ago. It's anything to burn off that nervous energy. And just remember, do turn off your camera, otherwise they'll be putting on quite a show. Okay, any other questions?
That is it for right now.
Okay, thank you. All right.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you see when the gestures look too canned?
Too
Look, the
canned. Yeah,
too
that's
mechanical and too canned.
that happens a lot. That actually happens to folks who practice their speech a lot. And so they've forgotten what it even means. It's just the words running through their head. Blah, blah, blah. Oh yeah, put up my hand. Da, 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 da. It's really stiff and uncomfortable. In that case, what I would recommend is stop all your gestures altogether. And you're gonna need someone to tell you, you've gone too far, stop. Just hold your hands down, just concentrate on the words, try and remember the feeling that you're trying to convey behind the words rather than just running through the memorized content.
I have another question. Is there a way to get your gestures to help you control your pace of your speech?
I don't know about the pace. I do like that what you triggered is a thought in my head, remembering that oftentimes when I'm practicing my speech, there is one point in the speech where I just keep messing up. No matter what I do, I keep forgetting what is the next line. A gesture is an awesome way. It's like kinetic memory, kinesthetic memory. So if you, let's say I wanted to say, I'm going to open up my computer, view the screen, and then I'll move to the next point. And I keep forgetting to say, and then I'll move to the next point. So I'll say, I'm going to open my computer, view my screen, and then move to the next point. Later, when I'm coming to that point, I won't remember the words, but my hand will remember. And as it goes out, kink, the words pop into my head. It's amazing how that works. But regarding slowing the pace, you have to become very conscious for pace. And when we're nervous, that gets thrown out the window. I'm not sure that a gesture would help unless you've told yourself, when I get to this one gesture, slow it way down. And by forcing yourself to slow way down, it will probably slow your words as well.
Good.
Thank you. All right. If you're willing, think of a joke that you want to share, and we'll do a couple more exercises and then come back to jokes. And I want to see folks use their gestures for the punchline. Remember to move in if you're going to do a punchline, and convey emotion however you think for your joke. So go ahead and think about that a moment. In the meantime, I have a tennis ball in my hand, imaginary tennis ball, and I am going to toss it to you. I want you to catch it. Here it comes. Good. So we had double hands. Good. And you kept it in tight, or you could have had a single hand. Good. Now I want you to throw it back to me. Yeah, good. Now for those of you who are really close to your camera, your hand went way close to the camera. That can be funny, but if you didn't intend that, so just be aware when you're pointing, and in this case throwing, that you do it really like a girl, really close to your body, and then toss it. Yeah, very good. All right, now we're going to do a comparison. I want you to hold out your hands. In one hand, you have courtside seats to a professional basketball game, considering the pandemic is over and we can go to these again. So, all right, you have that in one hand. In the other hand, going to be playing at the exact same time is a ticket to see front row Hamilton at the theater. All right, so which one are you going to choose? All right, so one hand went up. Some people went, I don't know. How do I make the choice? Right, good, good. So that was our comparative thing. And that, so as you're talking, you would tell your audience, I had a ticket to the basketball game, front row seats to Hamilton, what to do? And then you look at the audience and then give them your decision. Before you give the decision, here's just an added tip, pause. Let the audience think about the decision in their own mind. They're thinking about what would they choose, then present what you did. Okay, so let's, oh, there we go. Does anybody have a joke that they would like to share? Okay, I see Ruth. Let me put you on speaker view here. All right, Ruth, go ahead and put on your, unmute yourself and tell us your joke.
Well, my grandmother has the heart of a lion and a lifetime ban at the zoo.
Good, very good. All right, anybody else have a joke? Yes, Sabaji?
Why doesn't Trump compare himself to Steve Jobs? Even he knows the difference between an apple and an orange.
Very good. You leaned in and you did your comparison thing. Nice, nice. Anybody else have one they'd like to share?
Sharon, yeah.
Sharon? Yeah, go ahead.
Steven Spielberg has the heart of a small child, and he keeps it in a jar on his desk.
Oh, okay. I would say do that one again, but lean in close to your camera when you do it because it's horrific, right? Go ahead, try that again, but lean in for your punchline. Oops, you're on mute again. Sorry. There you go.
Steven Spielberg has the heart of a small child, and he keeps it in a small jar on his desk.
Nice, nice, very good. Creepy works for the punchline. Very good. Anybody else like to try? One more. Yes, Dennis.
What's the difference between a seagull and a baby?
What's the difference?
A seagull flits across the shore.
uh, I don't get it. Oh, my husband had to whisper it to me. Okay. All right. At this point, I'm going to share with you some prep that you can do before, so that you get your gestures to work well before you actually present to an audience. Gina Barnett is a communications coach, and she's worked with TED conference speakers, and this is what she recommends. Write out your speech, practice it, then film yourself presenting. I said this a little bit earlier. It really helps. Once you get the words down, then watch yourself to see what can you do differently with body posture, body gestures. All right. Also, take a few minutes before you're going to give your speech and think about what is it you want the audience to get out of what you're saying. That is so important. There was one conference for officer training where I was asked to teach Sergeant at Arms training, and I thought, oh, it's so boring. Who cares about Sergeant at Arms training? I want to do something fun. I want to entertain people. All right, well then, before it was my turn to speak, I thought that in my head. I want to get people to laugh. I want to get them to smile. And then I went on stage and I shared the important points of being a sergeant at arms, but jokes came to me and I would make that eye contact and get people to laugh along with the content. But I don't think I could have done that if I hadn't been in that frame of mind. So before you give your presentation, think about what it is you want to share with your audience. And the last thing is, right before you're going to give your speech, if you're off, if your video is off, go ahead and burn off your nervous energy, as I was saying. But as the Toastmaster is starting your introduction, take some deep breaths to let go of that nervous energy, to ground yourself. Then remember good posture, smile, and begin. And whew, we made it through all the content, a lot of great questions and good practice. Is there anything else anybody would like to cover, or if you have additional questions?
Yeah, Evelyn, I have a question. This is more advanced. I know we can't do this right now, but I noticed a good speaker walk around, move around. How would you do that? I know you can't do that now.
That if you are standing when you speak and,
yeah.
and need to move around, yeah. So
Hold on, good speaker move around. How would you move around?
Oh, how would you move around if you're standing?
Not looking stupid or dumb, like just.
Yeah, well, just like with sitting, you don't want to just be pacing. That's the worst, because it feels good. You're burning off that nervous energy, but it's very distracting to the audience. They're just thinking, where are they going? What's happening? So you want to remain still, hands at the side, and as you're speaking, if you're introducing a new point, then move to a new position. Either in Zoom, it's really hard because your area is so tiny, but take one small step over to the left or to the right, continue whatever you're saying, then make a new point, scoot over to another position. If you're talking about something that you were doing, then go ahead, act it out. I was putting a heavy backpack on my back, or I was dusting and cleaning all day. So you're making those hand gestures. But for movement itself, only move to a new position during a new point in your story or for a reason. Maybe you said, and then I took a walk. So then, of course, you're walking. Hope that helps.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have.
Yes. There's another
Madam,
question.
I have one question.
Yes.
Yeah, I have 3 gestures, madam. I don't understand what is that gesture. Can you help me, madam? Like this, when they will do, the speaker will do like this, madam. What is the meaning of this gesture?
Let me see if I can find you.
And
One
what is
second.
the meaning of this gesture?
Oh, putting your hand here like this? Yes, that usually
Yeah,
means
what is
you're,
meaning? Yes, ma'am.
yeah, this one is you're being thoughtful. You're thinking about something. So you would say, there are 5 points that I've shared with you. Let's think about them for a moment. So you could have gone, think about this for a moment, but if you want people to really contemplate something, you would put your hand. There's a famous statue where the man is leaning over, the thinker, and he has his finger or his knuckle against his chin. Yeah, I don't know why. Why is that? Why does that mean think about it? But it's conventional.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
He also had another question. If you have like this, what does it mean?
Ah, yeah, that's good. So crossed arms, that's a closed posture. That is not open to your audience at all. I would only cross my arms if I was trying to convey anger or discipline, or maybe if you're doing a fairy tale, I am the king, so it's power and blocking. But it is in no way an open gesture. It's really closed off. So in general, avoid, you wouldn't ever want to give a speech with your arms crossed.
Miss
But I got another one about eye contact. I know it's hard to do in Zoom, but how do you make let's say you're speaking in front of a large audience. How do you make eye contact with everybody without looking like a creep?
Yeah, that one's really hard. In Zoom, it's impossible. It really is impossible because you can't, what I had shared, where you want your screen as close to your camera as possible. You want to be in speaker view. So you're only going to be seeing 4 people. And, you know, if there were 100 people in the room, you're only going to see 4. And you're just going to look from one of those people to the camera, to another person, to the camera. So the audience themselves on the other end of the telephone line, and to talk like an old person, is they are only seeing your eye contact when you look at the camera. So there is no way to look at a particular person.
What about when you're on stage, in like you're doing a real live stage talk? How would you do eye contact? Normally people just look at one person, right? But how would you scan the room so it looks good?
Yeah, you wouldn't scan the room. That's a really good question. If it's a very large audience, you can get away with a lot in that you just kind of generally look to the left, find a person to look at, and 10 people in that area will think you're looking at them. If it's a much smaller group, maybe 10 people just sitting in front of you, then you'll take your time and start. When you begin your speech, find someone in the center to look at. Then when you're going to introduce a new point, turn your head, walk towards that person, and you're looking at a new person and sharing your new point. So basically, look at somebody. This is, again, you're on stage. Look at someone and walk towards them a little bit, speak to them. Turn and look at someone else, walk towards them as you're speaking. Turn, walk, and speak. So that's, and there's some rule like hold their gaze for, I don't know, 5 or 7 seconds, something that seemed way too long. I only hold it for maybe 1, 2, 3, I would say 4 seconds tops. But that's me. I have a hard time, well, especially with the camera, but maintaining eye contact. Unless I've got this really good joke I want to share and I want to see their reaction, then I'll keep focused on that one person. But if I'm just speaking in general, I tend to jump from person to person.
Thank you.
Evelyn, there is another question.
Yes.
What is your view on power poses? Is it a sign of confidence or can it be a barrier to the audience?
Yeah, it can be a barrier because it'll seem like you're dictating to them in some way. You know, listen to me, I know everything. But you usually, when you're presenting, you want to have people connect with you and be open to what you have to say. So hands by the side, you would want to avoid no crossed arms. Hands on hips is too authoritative. Hand in the pocket, a little too lackadaisical. So again, hands just by the side is the best. Thank you. All right, if there are no other questions, thank you so much for letting me share gestures with you. It's been fun. And I'm very interested to